Morning, everyone. Welcome to our State of the Towns, our Municipal Leaders Breakfast. It's great to see everybody here today. And before we start, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Tom O'Rourke, President of the Chamber. And I want to thank Gray and Gray, Andrea Sincata, for hosting us today here in this beautiful space. Really nice place to be. And I want to thank and recognize our sponsors of this program today as well. We have the Bank of Canton and Mass General Brigham Healthcare Center who are sponsoring this program today. So thank you for your support there. We always look forward to this event. This is our third year doing it, and I think it's a great opportunity for members of the business community to hear from our local leaders about what's going on in our communities. But also at the end, we'll open it up to Q&A, and it'll be an opportunity for you to share maybe some questions or thoughts that you have as well from the business perspective that it's important for our community leaders to hear as well. So hopefully we'll have a good exchange at the end. So the format, if you don't know, is we're going to give each of the administrators a few minutes to talk a little bit about what's going on in their community. And once they've done that, as I said, we'll open it up to questions. There is still some food and breakfast over there if you'd like to help yourself. Restrooms are on this side of the room over here, just so you know. And with that, I think we'll start off with Jim Johnson from the town of Walpole to tell us what's happening in Walpole these days. You can stay there if you want, and we can just pass the mic.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Jim Johnson, town of Walpole, town administrator. Been here about 21 years in Walpole. Great place to live. And thank you, Tom, for inviting us over to talk. So Tom had asked me and all of us to touch upon a few issues going on in our town. So I figured I'd just dig right into it and kind of give you an overview of what is going on in Walpole. Right now, we're just finishing up a middle school, closing out some punch list items. That was about $115 million. We are also in the middle of a high school project. That's a renovation project. It's about $38 million. We're doing it within the levy limit, no override on that one. And for $40 million, you don't get a whole lot anymore. Back in 2000, it was about $58 million to renovate the whole place. So we're adding on a gymnasium, renovating a science wing, doing some other improvements to the counseling areas, but we're trying to do our best and stay within the levy limits. Obviously, the question's coming up to me now during our weekly construction meetings. Well, what about the tariffs? How's that going to impact our project? I actually brought it up to our project manager yesterday, and the answer is, I don't know. It changes, and as you guys are seeing it, it changes. Seems like daily, maybe hourly, depends on who you ask and what news you listen to. So that's something that's really on my radar screen as far as are we going to get hit up with some more cost on that one. Our budget, the schools are about a $1.3 million gap as to what I'm recommending versus what they are at. We told them we'd split the difference with them. Give me until the fall. I'll come up with $650 in one way or another. I'm trying to keep them away from using our one-time funds, which is pretty tough at times, but I think we kind of have a truce right now until we get past town meeting, and we're going to see what happens in the fall with the final state budget and everything else that comes out. We're also dealing with a big increase on our health insurance, as I'm sure you folks are seeing. We were told expect a 10 to 15% increase in your health insurance. They came back at 14%, which was a tough pill for us to swallow. We have 6 municipal unions, the teachers union, and a couple of other ASME unions on the school side. Fortunately, we were able to get with them earlier this week. Over the course of 2 negotiation sessions, negotiate a couple of changes on their deductibles without having to go the formal route. And we got them to come down to about 10% by adjusting deductibles. And it was modest. It was about $150 on the individual side, $250 on the family side. And we didn't really want to hit up the employees too hard, but we also needed to tighten our belts a little bit. So it was an easy negotiation. I was surprised how quickly it went. On the private side, we have three new hotels coming into Walpole. One on, actually all 3 are right located on Route 1 on Boston Providence Highway. One's going to be down in South Walpole, right on the Foxboro line, actually right near Eastern Pearl, if you know where that is. It's going to be directly next to the current standing hotel. The owner has enough space to build another hotel just to kind of mirror it. The second one's going right near Rodman Arena. That's going to be about 60 hotel units. It's the building that's directly in front of it. It used to be a tech school. It was a security firm, I think, before that. They're going to convert that, which is great. They don't have to go before our permitting boards because the building's existing. They have enough parking there, so I think that one's going to be streamlined. I'm not sure if that's going to be in place in time for the World Cup, but it might be. And the third one's going right on the Sharon and Walpole line. Fred and I have been working on that one for dating back to before COVID. The permitting's been tough on that one, but they finally have all the permitting in place, and that's going to be a nice joint venture between Sharon and Walpole, and it's going to benefit both towns. We also have a bunch of residential projects going on still around town. In South Walpole, we have about 268 units going in. On Renmar Road, 100 units going in. West Street, another 95, and over at the Walpole Mall, a new developer bought it last year. They also own the Arsenal Mall in Watertown, and they are going forward with, they want to kind of mirror what they've done in Watertown. It'll be a real nice project, but a lot of these projects have been in the works for years. They've been slow to get off the ground, and I'm expecting they might be even a little slower given the uncertainty with the economy, with the cost of everything. So Tom had also asked me to touch upon MCI Cedar Junction. What's the future with that? Right now, it's very much in limbo. We met with our state delegation a few times over that. The select board formed the MCI Cedar Junction Advisory Committee. The town of Concord is in a similar situation. They're a bit more advanced than us. Their property's already been declared surplus by DCAM, but ours is still very much in limbo. They're using it as a transportation facility, and they're storing records there. They're also just informed our fire department that they could use it as a training facility. They've told us they have no interest in getting rid of it at this time. They want to use it in case they ever need it in the future. I was told at one point they needed $30 million in just electrical repairs to their facility, so that's why they moved the prisoners there. Obviously, I was very much concerned with what happened in Norfolk in converting that old prison site to a migrant shelter. I was worried it was going to happen in Walpole right there because that facility is even bigger. It never happened because they said the facilities just needed too many upgrades, so that wasn't going anywhere. And the only other thing that I'm sure Paige will touch upon is the World Cup soccer. Obviously, that's going to impact all of us around here. Foxboro probably the most. I'm guessing Walpole second most, being so close to everything. I think they've started having discussions with our public safety department heads. Kraft likes to keep at least Walpole at a very, hands length distance. Only comes to us really if he ever needs something. He does pay for the police and fire support on game days and during big concerts, but I'm very much mindful of the impact it's going to have on the area, especially South Walpole. So no real news on that one. I just know that they're planning for it, and I hope they use some of that money they take in to bring in some more free agents in Foxboro for the Patriots. So, Fred, I'll hand it off to you.
I think who's next? Charlie's. No, go ahead, Fred. You sure?
Yeah, we'll go right down.
All right, that works out. Hi, I'm Fred Turkington, the town administrator in Sharon. Much like Jim, we're excited about some economic development initiatives in our community. For those of you who didn't see on the news, Costco opened yesterday in what's beginning of the Sharon Gallery project. We're really hopeful that this is also a springboard for David Spiegel to fill up the tenants. There's 2 spec buildings going up. One has 24 apartments on the second floor and retail on the bottom. He has tenants he'll be announcing shortly for that building. He's still looking for larger anchor tenants for a couple of other sites in the project. There's also 150 condominium units that are going to be built. And if any of you have been to the site, it's where the employee parking fenced-in area is for Costco at the moment. That's where the housing will be hopefully done shortly. Jim mentioned the hotel. It's straddles the 2 town lines, so we work collaboratively to share the tax revenue from that, both property taxes, hotel, and meal tax. It's right next to the Applebee's, and it was a good joint venture because the project required water and sewer. We were able to tap in and negotiate with the town of Walpole to connect to the MWRI system. We've rejuvenated our Economic Development Committee. They will be presenting an update of where they are at the Select Board meeting on April 10th. If any of you are interested, it'll be a live meeting at Sharon Town offices, but it's also broadcast on Sharon TV. If you want to hear an update, they've identified members that have been reaching out to the business community, Route 1 businesses, Heights Plaza, Post Office Square, etc. Looking to get ideas and information from property owners and businesses about what things the town can do to be supportive, if there's any regulations that stand in your way, what can be done to help stimulate economic development from your standpoint to be able to reinvest in the community. This coming spring, our town meeting will feature a fairly big discussion on our budget. The school department current services budget was over 5.5%. They've made some cuts to bring it to 4%. The Finance Committee is trying to cap taxes given the uncertainty in the economy, a little bit lower than that. So there'll be a discussion whether to supplement the school budget at town meeting. Also at the town election this year, our board is expanding from 3-member select board to 5. So there's 4 candidates for the 3 seats so far. Still have a couple more weeks to pull papers if they're interested, so it'll be something to keep an eye on as to how the transition impacts Sharon's governance. Our capital projects share similar concerns Jim mentioned with tariffs and the impacts on those, but fortunately our library is just about done. That'll be opening around June 1st, but we're in the midst of building a water treatment plant, which has been a shared project with state and federal funds. Senator Feeney's here. He's been instrumental in helping the town get low interest and zero cost loans from the Clean Water Fund, and Congressman Oshkosh secured a $3.5 million earmark in the Inflation Reduction Act that's offset a cost of that. We also used our ARPA funds to build the plant rather than any other purpose we could have used it for. So we brought the cost of the plant down in half for borrowing. That'll be paid through water rates. Lastly, my colleagues here have been great using Sharon as a farm team. I have 2 engineering people, 1 left for Westwood, 1 left for Foxboro to be town engineer. The second assistant town engineer in a row, but's gone to Foxboro to be town engineer.
Yeah, well, the other one already left.
Already left to be an assistant town manager. So, we generally share staff and are growing folks. But any of you that are involved in consulting engineering or know folks, or maybe some of your kids are graduating college, we have 2 openings for civil engineering folks in our office. One of them will be focused a lot on GIS, the other on septic inspections. And our town engineer, who many of you might know, Peter O'Kane, who's been with the town for 24 years, is retiring from us, but going to do a little consulting work as he phases into real retirement. So we're recruiting all 3 of those positions. So if any of you know anyone who's interested in a career in engineering on the municipal side, please get in touch with us. Thanks.
That was me last year trying to recruit. So I'm Paige Duncan. I'm from the town of Foxboro. I'm not hiring, knock on wood. I shouldn't say that out loud. So we've been focusing heavily on economic development as well in Foxboro. If you haven't been to Uptown Foxboro lately, check us out. Our theater, I might have mentioned this last year, but our theater continues to thrive. We have Shoveltown Brewery right next door. The theater is getting ready to do a whole facade improvement with outdoor terrace. They're looking to do outdoor drinks and dining out there. So I made a note because I feel like Uptown's it's starting to vibe. So right now we have a brew pub, a theater, many restaurants. We have an ice cream store, a cookie store, a bakery, and a butcher. And my big win, although I'm not wearing that hat anymore, is we just learned that we're getting a gift shop, or like a store where you actually go browse and shop. So from an economic development perspective, that's very exciting, because I'm always talking about, we want people to come spend time in Uptown Foxboro, and you always envision, going store to store. Well, pizza shops and hair salons aren't necessarily what we were looking to do. So we're starting to see a change uptown, and it's really exciting. We have a new breakfast place, Scram Kitchen. And then outside of Uptown, we have Hobby Lobby opened up. Laced Pizza is where Chicky Flynn's used to be. I've seen that on Facebook, even outside of Foxboro. I guess the bar pizza is all the rage. I haven't tried it yet. They're very busy on the weekends, and I don't know if they're doing takeout on the weekends because they're having trouble keeping up, but check it out. And then the latest news is there's pickleball coming to Patriot Place. So stay tuned for that, the big rage there. So, Uptown's been a lot of fun and very rewarding. If you really want to see a Hallmark movie, come to Light Uptown. It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and every year it gets bigger and better. We have a real Santa, we have fake snow, we have hay rides, which are really not, but it is literally a quintessential Hallmark movie at this point, so come check it out. Similar to that, we have a tourism initiative with Rentham and Plainville. Mass Gaming Commission has been funding that. So if you check out visitfpw.com, that's our Franklin, I live in Franklin, Foxboro, Plainville, Rentham site. And as we prep for World Cup, we're hoping to really leverage all the work we've done. We have itineraries and whatnot. So we're trying to draw folks who come to, say, the Outlet Mall or see a Patriots game rather than maybe staying in Boston if they come from out of the region. A lot of the Outlet Mall folks stay in Boston, take a bus down for the day and go back. We want them to come down to this region, see what we have to offer. So we've been working on this since 2019, and we're hoping to really see it come to fruition during World Cup. So World Cup, we don't even know. 7 matches. We hear the equivalent of 7 Super Bowls. I know my public safety officials have been in meetings, probably a third of their time at this point. It's going to get worse. We saw what happened with Army Navy. At this point, I think our police chief is building the security protocol because he's responsible for all of the security out there. Dealing with FIFA, I believe, is a challenge. For Foxborough, it's been a little bit of a challenge because it's really called Boston soccer. So Boston has a big play. Massachusetts has a big. So we're kind of like, hey, don't forget the games are actually happening down here. So it's at a scale that we can't even really fathom. I mentioned to someone that in one of the early meetings, they were talking about the number of buses we'll need, because a lot of people are coming from other countries. They're used to using very successful public transportation systems. I'm not sure we're there. So they were talking about all the buses they were going to need. And there's World Cup matches in Toronto, MetLife, Boston. So like the Eastern Seaboard is heavily impacted. They did an inventory of the number of buses that would be available to commandeer for all the bus service. And they were short. So this was a year ago. So I'm sure they're coming up with solutions. But even that type of thing, the number of hotels, the number of, I think Route 1 is probably going to end up being limited access. I'm not 100% sure of that, but because it travels so closely to the stadium, there may be points where you have to park satellite and then get bussed in. So we can't even fathom what's coming, but stay tuned. I've said to people in Foxboro and maybe in South Walpole, if you can Airbnb your house, you might just want to get out of Dodge and, make some money and get out of here, because we have no idea. The matches could happen at 7 in the morning. They could happen at noon. They could happen at night. It's not like they're going to be a Patriots game where it's at night or a concert. So it's very exciting. It's going to be an opportunity for all of us economic development-wise, but I do worry about the impact on Foxborough residents. Last year when I was here, I was probably whining about the MBTA communities and the housing requirement. Miracle of all miracle, Foxborough passed MBTA communities. We are not suing the government, the Massachusetts, like Rentham is. So for that, we're a little bit relieved. We've started to see the impacts coming through there where, fire grants weren't given. Whether that's right or wrong, it actually helps us because a lot of our residents are mad that we're not fighting it. So in a way, we can just say, let's sit tight. We're following the law. Our most exciting thing is if you come to Foxborough and you come by way of 95 to 140, you'll see a big project right on the corner of Walnut Street and 140. That is a housing authority project. It's going to be 200 all-affordable senior apartments. Occupancy is scheduled for the first phase in October, with the second building in December, and then they're trying to get funding from the federal government for the third building. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but we are so excited. The lottery is now open. They're accepting applications. So this is huge for Foxborough to have that housing opportunity. We're also dealing with PFAS plant, and we've had some help, but we need 2 more plants. So we're hearing it where I live. We're hearing it in other towns in Foxborough. People are tired of the water rates. I don't know how this is going to move forward. We have to pay for more and more plants on the backs of our ratepayers, and it's going to be a challenge. Pavement management is another thing, and we have a lot of residents starting to do citizen petition for sidewalks, which we all love sidewalks, but when it comes at the cost of something else, so we are now entering into a strategic plan where we're going to start to identify what we need to spend our money on. Everybody wants sidewalks, but if you put up against, a police officer or some certain piece of equipment, it might not be as easy. In a bragging thing for my fellow town managers, Foxboro's fire department was accredited last year through CFAI and through the Center for Public Safety Excellence. Shameless plug, I'm now on the board. But anyway, Foxboro is the only community in Massachusetts to have to be accredited by this agency, and only the third in New England to have both ISO and this. So we really are seeking to improve our public safety, and I really see it as a resident benefit because the level of health care that our paramedics, all of our firefighters are paramedics, first of all. So if you call 911 in Foxboro, they're dealing with like intubation, ultrasound, and whatnot. So as a resident of another town, I'm going, do I get that? So just a shameless plug for our public safety. They're fabulous. We're opening a community center. We were fortunate to purchase a church for $2.5 million last year. We would have had a community center, probably would have been $15 to $20 million. We weren't going to do it. We bought this church. But now we're seeing we have to go back to town meeting to ask for an extra $650,000 because our sewer estimates have come in more than double. So no one likes that, but we have to do it. So yeah, we're feeling great up in Foxboro. We're seeing, we're all kind of holding our breath right now to see what's happening. We'd love to see more development on Route 1. We did submit a federal grant for the pedestrian bridge to go over Route 1 to help with public safety. We'll see if the Crafts have any in with Trump. We're trying, but other than that, we're just all getting ready for World Cup and hoping that our economy doesn't tank. Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. Good morning, everybody. My name's Charlie Duty. I am the town administrator in Canton. Welcome to Canton, by the way. I guess I'm the host town administrator here. A lot of great things happening in Canton. I mean, other than the obvious news in Canton, there's a lot of other great things happening in Canton. What news? Wait another few weeks. Talk a little bit about business development. I see Gene Manning is here, chair of our Economic Development Committee. Does a great job. Thank you, Gene. A couple of things on the business side. We have a company opened up in Canton called Remtech. They opened a 55,000 square foot facility on Campanelli Circle. Remtech is a company that does advanced ceramic packaging for the electronics industry, and they continue to grow. So we're happy to have them in Canton. We have an article in this year's town meeting for a 43D expedited permit article. We have a company at 30 Dan Road that's building out a 140,000 square foot facility in the biotech arena. So we're hoping to attract biotech industry in the Dan Road area to join other firms down there like Organogenesis, which is, I think, the world's leader in manufacturing skin for wound care. So we're hoping that passes at town meeting. The 99 on Turnpike Street here is being demolished. Sadly, coldest beer in town is now gone. However, there's a new storage facility that's planned to be constructed there. And speaking of beer, Trillium, which is right next door here. I don't know if you've ever been to Trillium. Fantastic place, great beer as well, good food as well. They had a major expansion at their facility, so now they are brewing, distilling spirits. So you can get beer and booze in the same place. So it's a great place. On the town side, we have recently passed a town meeting article, special town meeting article to construct the new Galvin Middle School. It's a $240 million middle school, grades 5 through 8, so we're excited about that. The current facility is about 50 years old and was in dire need of repair. Unfortunately, the citizens voted to construct this new school. So have a lot of great amenities, and we're looking forward to that. It's going to be about a 3-year process. More good news, the Canton High School boys varsity hockey team, Division II, is back to the state championship this Sunday. It's the 5th time in 6 years that they'll be at the Garden competing, so we wish them the best. It's a great program. You probably saw on the news the Pappas Rehabilitation Center closure. That was formerly the Massachusetts Hospital School, which has been in Canton and operating for about 100 years. It is an amazing facility, and it took care of this state's most disabled children, and we were very disheartened to hear that the governor and DPH had announced its closure. And as expected, there was a lot of outcry because that facility has a lot of connections to the community and to families and to children, and with the help of Senator Feeney and his staff and Rep. Galvin, Rip Rogers and others. They managed, and Congressman Lynch as well got involved, in addition to local officials, and managed to convince the governor to put a pause on that closure, to look at it a little bit more in depth and maybe get some more stakeholder input as to what potentially could be done at that facility. It does need millions of dollars in repairs and upgrades. So we're hopeful that that facility stays open. It's an important part of our community. As long as we're recruiting, town planner, looking for a town, which Paige was looking for last year, I think. Looking for a town planner. They're a rare breed, but if you know anybody that's in the town planning business, send them my way. We'd love to fill that position. Paul Revere Heritage Park, it continues to get built out. That was the former Plymouth Rubber industrial site. It's a beautiful new greenscaped area with lots of walking trails, lots of housing, condominiums. There's some over 55 housing there. It's a great place if you haven't been there. Northern Spy Restaurant operates in the old Paul Revere rolling mill. So it's a cool historical site. If you've never had a chance to see it, come out and check it out. The Paul Revere Museum was recently awarded $2.2 million. I shouldn't say awarded. Town meeting approved $2.2 million for that museum, and that museum is being built out and hopefully will be done by this summer and open and operating so the public can come and learn a little bit about colonial era America and Paul Revere and what he did here in Canton. So check it out. St. Gerard, so similar to what Paige was talking about, the town obtained the former St. Gerard's Church property on Washington Street a couple of years ago, and we are just finishing up a feasibility study to see what that property could potentially be. So it's a 9-acre property. It's got a church and a rectory on it, and we did a lot of citizen engagement and figured out what did the community want to see. So they're looking for things like a community center, perhaps municipal offices, more open space. So we have a feasibility study to kind of figure out what that would look like. You know, if it was a clean slate, what it would look like, or if you reuse the buildings, what would it look like? So we're looking forward to the results of that and hopefully move forward with that project probably after the Galvin Middle School, which is an expensive project as well. I guess finally we are dealing with some of the results of the MBTA communities law as well. So the town of Canton did pass that. We have our first project that has come to the table. It's a 50-unit apartment building off of Neponset Street, with a component of that being affordable as well. So that's kind of like the first thing we've seen from the MBTA communities law. So we're working with the developer. Pulte Homes is the developer. We're working with them on that project, and hopefully that goes smoothly. And we're also kind of dealing with the results of the accessory dwelling unit regulation that was recently passed. We haven't had any proposals for accessory dwelling unit projects yet, but we feel like that might be coming down the pike, so we're trying to address that through our zoning laws at this town meeting to set up the proper zoning regulations so that can be done smoothly. And I think that's all I have. Thank you very much. I'm going to give it to the closer, Tony Mazzucco.
Thank you, Charlie. Couple things to kick off. I'll mostly talk about Norwood Hospital, but Paige mentioned bar pizza. Linwood in Randolph is the best bar pizza in the Commonwealth. It's not up for debate. It's a fact. So, and if anyone wants...
Can I just maybe counter that? The VFW in Randolph.
And Betts is second. Hoey's is second.
I think Hoey's is first.
We're going to have a conversation later tonight about that one.
We should do site visits, you know?
we should host this at Linwood. So a couple things going on in Norwood before I talk about the hospital. On the municipal side, we're facing some of the same challenges with our costs starting to escalate, particularly in health insurance. We're part of the state's pool, which is good because our loss ratio is actually terrible. So the rest of the Commonwealth that's in this pool is actually offsetting our costs. But we're seeing, I think, a 10 to 13% increase this year after a 6% increase last year. It's really starting to kill us. On the municipal side, one of our best recruiting tools used to be that we had good health insurance, and we still do, but we have landscaping companies coming in with health insurance plans comparable to ours in some cases, and that 15 or 20 years ago, you didn't have that. For DPWs, you could always recruit by saying, hey, you're going to get benefits. The market has changed, and obviously with healthcare reform in Massachusetts, almost every company out there offering some form of health insurance. It's no longer the competitive advantage it used to be. If you look at Norwood with companies like FM Global and Moderna, we're not really reaching parity with their benefits. The cities and towns still have a good pension system that requires 35 years to get to your maximum amount. So obviously with changes in the workforce and folks moving around, that's not the same draw it was umpteen years ago. And part of that dovetails with the way the local economy is growing and the way salaries have been growing. Norwood's average home price, I think on paper now, is maybe 6.5 or 6 3/4. 6 or 7 years ago, it was in the low 4s. So in under a decade, what was always a working to middle class town, we have completely priced out cops, firefighters, and teachers from the town. So we're now in a unique position where we try to recruit, and we know most of the entry-level employees we're bringing in will not be able to live in Norwood. So that's one of our challenges that we're facing. A lot of our contracts are usually locked up in procurement for a couple of years. So the inflation that hits the general economy usually hits municipalities a little bit later, but then it hits us pretty hard because we're locked into a nice low-cost contract for a couple of years, and then vendors are looking to make that up after a while. So we see that in construction. To the point on tariffs, we're same answer. We don't know what we're seeing. We did have one vendor tell us a bronze plaque for a construction site would end up needing a 20% charge increase because of tariffs, and we said, BS, you need to show us the invoice showing you're paying that. So we're being cautious of folks saying there's tariffs without providing us any kind of proof that there's actually an increase on their end. That being said, 80% of our budgets are salary costs. I'm waiting for one of my unions to come in and say because of tariffs they need a raise. I'm sure that'll happen soon. On the municipal budget side, we're in a similar situation. Prop 2.5 does a good job of limiting property taxes, but when your fundamental growth is 2 to 3% a year and your costs are going up 4 to 5% a year, you're almost always finding yourself in a bit of a gap. So we're using surplus revenue to balance the budget this year. We'll probably have to do that next year, and then there's just going to have to be an adjustment down the road, whether it's an increase in taxes or a reduction in services. Prop 2.5 has by and large done a good job since the early 80s of keeping property taxes in Eastern Mass from getting too crazy, because you really only see in towns, I mean, like Sharon, for instance, Westwood, where they have a more residential base, the tax rate goes up $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. You go to New York or New Jersey and you see that almost anywhere, whereas I think Canton is probably around 7,500, around where we are. Walpole's a similar amount, Foxboro's a similar amount. So it's done good, but you get yourselves into these mini boom-bust cycles where you just can't keep up with where your costs are. And education is changing, and that's every city and town's biggest cost. It's our biggest challenge. School departments add staff like they're going out of style. On the municipal side, we'll fight for 2 or 3 years to add an analyst somewhere. But the state needs to at some point step in and figure out how we're going to fund public education differently, because it doesn't really work. And some of the special ed costs that are really killing public education, there comes a point where it's not really an education cost. We fund it through the schools, but we have some, and every town does, we have some students who are very disabled who the program that you send them to is $300,000 or $400,000 a year. So when you're trying to pay for something like that, which is necessary and which is deserved out of a local education budget, it just doesn't make sense anymore. On the municipal infrastructure side and spending side, we're continuing to do road work. We're at the end of a 5-year road improvement program. We're actually looking at a sidewalk improvement program. We got a couple of complaints as we did road work. Folks would say, what about the sidewalks? And we would say, well, we're trying to fix the roads first, but we are looking at now, can we look at sidewalks and make sure that we can upgrade sidewalks? We're 5 years into a 10-year water lining project, which is causing some pressure on the water rates, but fortunately we don't have a PFAS issue. Norwood's an MWRA community. We have an unlimited supply of clean, PFAS-free water. We don't have to worry about the treatment plants on either end. The MWRA takes care of that, so that's been a big benefit to us. That's a significant economic driver for us. We can get virtually unlimited water and sewer to any site in town. So businesses locating particularly along Route 1 or any of our commercial industrial areas, we can get them whatever we need for water and sewer, which is a big driver. We also, as most folks know, we have our own electric company. That helps too. We can get reasonably whatever service is needed to any site in town. We've not had an electric increase since 2018. So that's helping. We've had some debt service come off the books, so we've been able to manage that in a way where we're keeping electric rates flat for, it's been 7 years now. We might be able to get another year or two before we have to start having some inflationary increases on that side. We're looking at potentially a couple of data centers coming in. They've started to realize that there's not a lot of data centers in the Northeast. Part of the reason is the cost of power, but they know that we're significantly cheaper. That being said, the amount of power that they generate, we had one site that folks were looking at and they said, oh, could you put a data center there? And foolishly I said, yeah, we can get you whatever power you need. And the figure they came back with was something like 40% of the town's load. And it's just the amount of power that these data centers use is just incredible. Moderna has mostly finished their expansion up on Route 1. They just purchased their campus from the real estate trust that owned it, spent a little over $400 million buying all of that land up there. So that's good to know. We know that they're vested, that they're going to be here for a while, even as they may lose some contracts at the federal level. That might cause them to have some contractions. We know that they're vested in the Norwood site, which is helpful and good for us. They're also still a great moneymaker for the town. They'll throw a $30, $40 million expansion on one of their buildings up like it's nothing. So whereas other businesses, it's years of planning, they'll just come in and say, yeah, we got to do this bump out. It's $27 million. And we're of course saying sure. If you've driven down Route 1 lately, FM's building in their project in Norwood, that's roughly a $500 million project, is going great. It's a beautiful building. We knew it would sort of come to redefine Route 1 in Norwood, and it's going to do that. It's right next to the 4 Points, so if you have a chance to actually be able to go and take a look at it, it's absolutely beautiful. It's probably maybe 40% constructed, but you can see the main sort of facade of the building on the northern side there. So that's continuing to go well, and Norwood, as you know, is fully built out. We're a dense community at 10 square miles. You take away the airport, we're 9, so we're always engaging in more redevelopment. I wish we had the land that some other towns have. We'd be reeling in a few more businesses, but everything you want to do in Norwood, you got to buy an existing piece of property, tear it down, and redevelopment. We assume we'll see some of that small parcel aggregation on Route 1 along the next couple of years as we still have auto dealers, but auto dealers now are 25 acres. Most of ours are older in that 7 to 8 acre realm, so we assume some of those parcels are going to continue to aggregate over time, and hopefully we'll get more larger developments like FM Global. Moving to the hospital. All I've really talked about for the last 3 or 4 months, I mean, I can't go to my doctor without him asking me about, or her asking me about the hospital. Everyone else tells the story about their doctors asking about the hospital, and I finally got double asked about the hospital this past Saturday. Somebody called me and said, hey, I was at my doctor's office and we were talking about the hospital. So nobody's talking about healthcare, everyone's talking about Norwood Hospital. The last couple of months have seen, I'd say, more movement, particularly from the state, than we've seen the last couple of years. Kicking off in October, we, at the town level, were finally able to meet with the real estate company that owns the hospital in town and started working with them. And we started putting together some a group of municipalities and building up some grassroots coordinating in the region, working with our delegation, Rep. Rogers and Senator Rush, and working with Congressman Lynch to really press the state to sort of come out and either declare their support for an acute care hospital, because we had heard that the state didn't think an acute care hospital would come back to Norwood. They haven't admitted that one way or another, but we wanted to make sure we got them on record. We had looked in the past about whether or not we would form a task force, which we've done now. So that started in October. By January, we had arranged a meeting with the governor. We had met in Boston with a number of officials, probably November-ish. We left that meeting with Congressman Lynch was going to sort of demand a meeting with the governor. He used his influence to get that meeting with the governor. A couple of officials from Norwood, as well as our delegation and some other members of the regional delegation, did finally meet with the governor and the HHS Secretary Kate Walsh and the Robbie Goldstein, the Commissioner of Public Health. We left that meeting with the state sort of saying, well, go ahead and form a task force similar to Neshoba Valley and similar to Kearney, even though Norwood's situation is a little different. So that's what we're doing. We're taking it a little bit differently because our challenge is a little different. Medical Properties Trust owns the site. They own it free and clear. There's no other lenders. There's no mortgage on the property. There's nothing. They own it free and clear. They want to exit the state. The state wants them to exit the state. One of our first challenges is between the Commonwealth, between the administration and Medical Properties Trust. It's really like a bad divorce. There's a very nasty, negative relationship there, and I think sometimes it gets in the way of us trying to say, look, we just want to build a hospital. Can we put our personal feelings aside? But we've put together a task force to start the work of trying to get the hospital reopened or get the hospital finished. We have to transact a land deal with MPT somehow, whether that's, I don't necessarily think it would be us per se, but whether it's a third party or whether it's reeling in an operator. An operator has to put together a business plan. They have to get that to the state. The state has to approve that. And then they have to make sure that they have the funding and the financing to make that happen. It's probably all in $400 or $500 million prospect to acquire the property, finish construction, and get a hospital up and running. There is some interest. Some of the challenges beyond the initial sort of upfront capital cost. The operating cost is going to be tough. You're going to take a loss that first year or two as you're getting a hospital up and running. So some operator has to go to, some hospital CEO has to go to their board and say, hey, let's spend $400 million and then lose $30 or $40 million a year for a couple of years and then trust us eventually it will work out. So it's a challenge. But Norwood Hospital was profitable before it closed. As we like to say, even Stewart couldn't screw up Norwood. So I think it's last year in operation, it had either an $11 or $14 million profit on top of a $15 million rent payment. Now, I think hospital budgets and financing is a little fugazi because they all have some made-up numbers and they claim they make no numbers. MGH, I think last year, said they only made $45 million on a $9 billion operation. So if they're only making $45 million on a $9 billion operation, and Norwood was making $30 million, half of that an unrealistic rent payment, must have been the most profitable hospital in the country, per square foot. So they know that that market is there. There's some competitive reasons why an MGH would want to go in. As an example, they've been trying to expand into the suburbs. They've always been pushed back because the state has this, at some point understandable, but now dated concept over, healthcare, too many healthcare companies in one area and crowding others out. We're losing healthcare in Massachusetts. We have wait times in ERs, so I think we need to let go of some of these old fears, but it's their chance to go into a market. Brown University Health has rebranded from Lifespan to Brown. They've expanded and taken 2 of Stewart's hospitals in Massachusetts. It would make sense for them to have something just outside of Boston. BI, BMC, whoever it is, there's a competitive reason to be in the market, and it was a profitable hospital before it closed. Beyond the hospital economics and the healthcare economics, and I'll talk about the impact on the economy, from an emergency services perspective, emergency services in central Norfolk County are at a crisis point. If we had to leave today, if you had a heart attack, you're going to Brockton or into Boston, good luck. Because the hospital had a cardiac cath lab, it's stressing our EMS services. We've all just assumed the hospital will be coming back and that Stewart and the state were sort of working on that. And of course the bankruptcy threw that for a loop, delaying things. And it's not the state's top priority. They are dealing with a number of other crises. It's certainly our priority. But long term, not having a hospital back in this area, not having particularly the emergency services back in this area, you're going to see your taxes go up because every town here is going to need to add additional ambulance services. We're probably going to have to add additional substations and physical locations. So you're talking about millions of dollars of additional costs to the cities and towns in the region. As doctors' offices move out because they no longer have a central point to locate their patients to, you're going to see your rental market go down. You're going to see healthcare as a quality go down for folks who have to travel further and further. And this region, central Norfolk County, is probably the most economically vibrant part of the state. We looked at housing. The last 5 years in the central part of the county, there have been more than 2,500 housing units built or permitted. There's probably another 2,500 coming on in the next couple of years. You look at the investments at Kraft, at Patriot Place. You look at what's going on in Walpole. Look at what's going on in Canton. Look at what's going on in Sharon. Look at a $500 million investment with FM Global in Norwood. This is probably an economic engine of the state that they don't realize because they think there's just other hospitals 20 or 25 minutes away. I can tell you when I lived in rural northern Maine, 15 miles down the road, you could get there pretty quickly. It took me more than 20 minutes to get here from South Norwood today. This is the region we live in. It is choked with traffic. We are not going 3 or 4 towns over for healthcare. Over time, we are creating a healthcare desert. It's going to have a significant impact on the economy. It's going to have a significant impact on housing. For anyone who's an advocate of housing production and trying to solve the housing crisis we have, it's going to get pretty hard to convince people to move somewhere when there's simply no health care available or no emergency health care available anywhere nearby. Sure, if you have a long-planned surgery, you can plan to go into Boston to get your foot surgery and it's not such a big deal. But from an emergency services standpoint, you cannot get from the core towns in Norfolk County to the other available ERs in a reasonable amount of time. Those ERs are overloaded, they're overwhelmed, and that's as far, Milton Hospital is overloaded. You have towns like Medway, which are in the, technically Norwood's catchment area, but they go to Milford Hospital. But now because Norfolk and Wrentham and Plainville are diverting to Milford instead of going to Norwood, they're getting backed up. And emergency rooms only have so much capacity. It's not, it's not a library that you can go in and take out as many books as you want. If they've only got space for 6 people and there's 8 people there, you're waiting. And they can only triage so much. So the state has this capacity crisis in eastern Massachusetts. The only chance we're going to have to add beds in the next decade is going to be in Norwood. So the state has at least begrudgingly got out of our way. And when I say the state, I want to talk about the administration. Our delegation and the regional delegation has been absolutely fantastic. Our task force is going to look at first trying to get some sort of a deal with MPT, and we're going to start nice, and if we have to get a little rough with them, you might hear about that. We're going to be submitting letters of interest from, non-binding letters of interest from potential operators. Hopefully we'll be able to get some sort of deal done on the land, get an operator interested, get the state to give us an emergency DON, because we're not going to spend a year with a regulatory process. If a hospital operator comes in and says they can do it, there's still 2 years of construction. We're not looking at a decade long here. We're going to need to pressure the state for that. And then on the back end, we might look at how can we help a hospital operator fund or finance something. They have to be able to make it work on their own, but maybe there's a situation where a number of the towns go in and decide to buy the land together and lease it for $1. Maybe there's some private funding or fundraising down the road where somebody can put their name on the building or something like that. But we got to make sure that the business plan works, because if we're trying to do that just to get it to work, it's not going to work. So it's a tall order. We've put together a strong task force. Charlie's on it with me. We've got some regional representation. We've got representation from statewide labor. So we've got the head of the Mass Nurses Association. We've got the head of the Mass Building Trades Union, deputy directors from SEIU and AFL-CIO, and the PFFM chief of staff. We've got the CEO from Roach Brothers. We've got the CEO from Bank of Canton, President of Bank of Canton, Steve Costello's here. We've got a number of other folks. So we've got business representatives, we've got industry expertise, and we've got statewide labor, which is going to give us the ability to negotiate and work with a company like MPT and work with these operators, as well as to make sure that when we need something from the state, we're going in with a significant amount of weight with who we can ask to call the governor. I described it to somebody. They said, you know, most people in Norwood are appreciative that it's not, we didn't just put together a group of Norwood folks local trying to get this done. I would say half the people on the task force have the governor's cell phone. And that's what we need. We need that level of access, and we need to be able to make sure that the state is with us as we move forward. Separate from that, there's also a large grassroots effort that is starting to build up. A number of my team and folks in Norwood are taking the lead in some of that, but we're not just looking to get a veterans agent to write a letter into the state. We're looking to coordinate veterans across the 12 towns, seniors across the 12 towns, schools across the 12 towns, PTOs across the 12 towns, all writing into the state to make sure that they understand the impact, and to make sure that when we go for that emergency determination of need, or that when we're looking for the state in a couple of years for the same funding that was provided to other Stewart hospitals, because we're not asking for money yet, but when the time comes, we're just going to want what the other hospitals got if that makes it happen, that we've got this grassroots campaign starting to build. We have a website, finishthejobnorwood.com. Go to the website. Check it out. Most of our information will be posted there. We have some socials as well. You can link to them from there. Find them, click them, like them, share them every day. Send a letter of support into the state every day. The website gives you an option to send a letter of support in. It goes directly to staff at HHS. I know the two people it goes to, and I want them absolutely annoyed with their email inboxes getting full. We need to have that continued presence. Share them on your town sites, share them on your business sites, share them on your personal sites. If you sit home at dinner and you send in a letter to the state saying, please, you know, make sure you support a hospital in Norwood, have your spouse do it, have your kids do it, have your parents do it, have people out of state do it, because we need to make sure that that grassroots pressure is there for the state so that we don't lose focus. And we want operators to know that it's a big deal. It's a big deal to us, but it's a good financial deal for them. From an investment standpoint, why wouldn't you want to build a hospital in the center of a region that is thriving economically and is building housing probably at a better clip than most of the rest of the Commonwealth? So if anyone has $500 million, I can get this done in a year. Short of that, follow the socials and the website, and we'll keep on keeping on with our campaign.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Tony. Thank you all. Quite a bit going on, obviously, and I think both hospitals are sort of the two of the big keys. World Cup coming is going to be huge. It's just a lot of interesting things happening. For the record, the chamber has sent a letter in about both hospitals, actually, and we would encourage you to do the same. And I've talked to Tony offline about the chamber and our members being there whenever we're needed to help out in any way with the effort as well. Before we open up to questions, we heard a lot of talk about the delegation helping out, and I wanted to recognize Senator Paul Feeney for being here this morning. Good to see you, Paul. It was good to see you at Costco yesterday. A lot of us were there. I think most of the state was there. It was unbelievable. So very exciting stuff for the town of Sharon. But with that, we would like to hear from you. Any comments or questions that folks have, we'd open it up to that right now. Don't be shy. Steve.
Great to hear all the stuff going on in local communities. I just had a question while you're all here. You knew what the status was. As you know, the virtual access to the public meetings is expiring at the end of this month. Have any of you heard where we're going? Is there
Let's ask that guy right there.
We're all wondering.
Yeah, want me to answer that? Tony?
Yeah.
Please.
So we've been up against this a couple of times. We've come to these kind of pandemic era deadlines that we've had to extend. From what I'm hearing, our Ways and Means team is working on a vehicle to be able to extend that. It looks like it's going to be probably pretty close to the deadline, but I would assume and just kind of cautiously optimistic that that'll be handled relatively shortly. We just need a legislative vehicle. As you all know, we're at the beginning of our 2-year cycle. Legislative session. There was a supplemental budget filed by the governor. There's also another supplemental budget that we're going to be looking at with the fair share money that was in excess in FY25. So we're hoping that one of those vehicles will be available for us to be able to do the extension on all those things, including remote public access. We just had a big debate in the legislature on whether or not we were going to allow it for hearings and things like that. It's worked, so I think we're going to see an extension on all sides soon, I hope.
I have a meeting on April 1st. It's the day after, and I need it to be remote.
You might have to show up, Paige, I don't know.
You know, it'll be a significant impact if it doesn't happen for some towns. It never really took off in Norwood for some reason. One of my former board members, Tom Maloney's here, we just sort of did the bare minimum, and there was just never really an interest for it. And I found it fascinating that I think it's because we have a great local community media access, but people would say, oh, we're doing these remote meetings and there's 30, 40, 50 people logging on to meetings that never came before. We set it up for months and like one person would show up. It's funny how it's been very different in some towns, but there are some councils and some select boards still meeting remotely that have never gone back to meeting in person.
Other questions? Tom?
Charlie, you mentioned the project on Neponset Street. Are there any other applications for projects under the MBTA Communities Act in any of the other communities?
Anybody?
No.
Looks like we're number one again.
In Walpole, they're kicking the tires at the Walpole train station. If you've ever been through Walpole Center, there's one company, the Manzo Group, who owns that brick building there where Therasso used to be, and they went bankrupt. They're kicking the tires on it, but I think they might go in under our current zoning, which allows even more housing under our existing zoning in the central business district.
And we did, our main area that's subject to development is over Patriot Place. And so we wouldn't be surprised to see if the craft group goes ahead. Because we're seeing, we've all seen Patriot Place kind of evolve. It used to have stores, and a lot of the retail, as we were seeing across the board, is sort of scaled back, and now it's a lot of restaurants. But it's quiet there sometimes. So we do think that if there was housing introduced to the upper levels of Patriot Place, it might actually activate the area. So I wouldn't be surprised. We also, I believe, Freedom Wind Tower is coming down. I don't know if that there was going to be an indoor skydiving place, and they built it, and then it went bankrupt, and now the word is it's getting torn down. So I wouldn't be surprised if when they tear that down, they want to throw housing there. So it'll be interesting to watch the crafts to see if they do it anytime soon.
We have in Norwood, but we had some areas we were looking to rezone anyway that were industrial areas, like along Lenox Street, that we knew were going to at some point turn over anyway. So it was sort of predicted that it would happen one way or another. We probably would have rezoned those areas even if it wasn't for 3A. We haven't really seen a hit in the downtown yet. We got to come back and look at our downtown zoning. I think we did it over 4 years ago. We were probably a little too ambitious in what we were looking for. We have step back requirements and setback requirements, and it's sort of great zoning if you have a completely open space where you have all the space in the world to develop. We have like a central block that we can develop. So I always complain about housing because Norwood has about 5,500 rental units. We are the densest community in the region. We have hotels, we have condos, we have townhouses. If you live in Norwood, you go around, we have triple deckers. I mean, we've pretty much got a housing stock that should be the envy of the Commonwealth. So sometimes when you hear other towns and they're complaining about housing, it's like, yeah, welcome to our world. We're pretty dense in Norwood.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate our town Administrator Fred for his perseverance and patience, as this Costco took about 18 years to build. I was at the town meeting. Remember that? I can't even tell you off about that. The whole town showed up and voted, yes, put something there to help the town. So Costco was there. I heard it was a great opening, great success. Are any other retailers committed yet to coming in?
I spoke with David Spiegel yesterday, and he has, in that building F with the apartments above the spec building that's up, he has a tenant that's going to take 40% of the space. He's expected to announce that, in the next week or two. He has multiple interests for smaller sections, 3,000 to 4,000 square foot spaces in that building, that he's trying to identify some of the other larger anchors before he signs on, because he wants to make sure that the leases are going to get paid and work out. So I think just the fact there'll be traffic through the project, people are aware of it. You can't see it from South Main Street. It's almost 3/4 of a mile up to the Rotary to go into the project. So that's always been the challenge. When you mentioned 18 years, I mean, it's been 4 different zoning iterations as the economy's changed. We went from lifestyle center, started with a BJ's and a Target that blew up, lifestyle center, Market Basket came and went, finally have Costco. So we're really expecting this to be the trigger point to build out the rest of the project. And it'll have a huge impact on Sharon's taxes.
There was talk about, because I live at that end of town.
Yep.
I live on Main. To get onto South Main, you got to come up Walpole.
Yep.
Ever talk of a light there?
There will be a light there.
There
Within
will
2
be?
years of opening of
More than 100,000 square feet, which was yesterday, they're required to put a light there. It's part of it. Within 2 years after they open at least 100,000 square feet of space, and Costco is 160,000, they have to put a light at Walpole.
Oh, that's great, because it's tough.
It's tough getting out in the morning,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh,
Yep.
Take it, though. We'll take it.
Okay. Anybody else? I have a question. I have a quick one. For Fred, just thinking, Sharon is the only town in the region that has cannabis in town, right?
anybody else have? I think you guys have all
We have
started.
medical in Norwood, right?
Yeah, it's becoming recreational though.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a weird.
Wasn't
quirk in-
supposed to.
It wasn't. There's a quirk in the law that if your medical marijuana place was permitted before a certain date, they are allowed to convert to recreational. So they happen to be permitted at that particular date, so they're now looking at converting to recreational. The town voted against it, but the law that got passed allows that to happen. So, I mean, they're still working through some financial issues. I don't think they've opened yet, but we'll end up tentatively having one. But it'll be the only one. So we actually have to go to the zoning board, and it's like, hey, you have to approve this change for something that the zoning says is not allowed, that we voted against, but you have to approve it because the law says we do, so.
Has it been profitable for Sharon?
So the economics have changed dramatically. Sharon was one of the few towns in the region that voted in support of legalizing marijuana, which meant we had to allow the retail. We zoned it along Route 1, had a facility come in. The owner of it that started it was looking at medical marijuana, delayed opening when he saw the law coming and went recreational. He's a former cancer patient, used it, believes in it, wasn't just an entrepreneur looking to make money, at least to start with. And he was more than generous, went beyond the host community agreement, offered us the 3% blanket tax to cover whatever ramifications are from having marijuana in your town. It also charged wholesalers, because he had grow and retail there, if they were not part of a network and they bought it, he was charging them a 3% tax and passing it on to Sharon. Then the Cannabis Commission, in whatever wisdom they have, has come up with restrictions on host community agreements, requirements for entry points in the market for other people. So the revenues, we peaked at $1.3 million 2 years ago. Next year we project revenue around $400,000 or $500,000. And we're also seeing that a number of the communities, maybe not folks at this table, but if you look at the map of the state, which towns voted yes for marijuana legalization and which ones were required to allow it, we were like an island. You had to go to Brockton or Boston to get cannabis when we opened. Other towns around us, maybe not this group, have opened places, jumped on the revenue train. So like any other business, multiple sites, pirates away some of the revenue. So it's dropped considerably, and we have a second marijuana facility about to open, so I think they're just going to pirate it from the other guy. So we'll see how it goes. Sure.
Yeah, and by the way, congratulations to all of you for vibrancy that you brought to your respective towns. Tony, tell me about the mess mess on 1A, but at the bottom of Prospect Street.
It's a mess. It's going to continue to be a mess for a while. It's a roughly $12 million construction project to put a light at that intersection. So when you come down Prospect Street in Norwood, we had this weird, not a rotary, but kind of a rotary. You'd sort of half go around a rotary and then all of a sudden be in a busy street without any stop signs and without any traffic lights. I don't know how more people didn't get killed there over the years, but finally it's taken us about 15 years. It's a state DOT funded project. There will be a light there once they finally align it. It's a mess. It's going to continue to be a mess. Those of you who live in Norwood know whenever anyone asks me about traffic, I don't lie and I don't sugarcoat it. Traffic sucks. There's very little we can do about it, and this project will continue to be terrible until it's finally done. And then the light, if anything else, will be safety. You could always sort of navigate your way through there, but you're taking your life in your hands, sort of half swinging around a rotary and then getting onto a busy street. So that's the half answer. That it's a mess and it's going to be a mess for about another year, but finally a light will be there and that'll be our salvation.
Anyone else?
Can I ask a question of the private sector?
Yeah, we have one more question over here, and then yes.
Since we opened up the can of worms of cannabis, I am a true Norwood Townie, worked at Norwood Hospital, worked at NORCAP. Is there any talk among the towns of possibly anybody opening up something that addresses the addiction need and the loss of those services that Foxboro used to have and Norwood used to have?
So the short answer is you sort of need a hospital to anchor that. One of our frustrations with the state is they are attempting to pull the emergency DON that Stewart had, and they said, well, Stewart said they'd construct 61 psychiatric beds, and they didn't. Well, you need a hospital to anchor that. Otherwise, how are folks finding sort of those services? Any hospital operator that wants to offer any type of medical services in the area, they have to go through that determination and need process, but it all needs to tie into a hospital system somewhere. And without something coming back to Norwood, we're kind of in the hinterlands of all these other different services. I think you have to get a hospital back. You have to get the emergency services back before you're going to have something like that open up. So let's say you did have some inpatient mental health beds, which we know is there's a need in the community, or some of the medium to longer term addiction recovery beds, the medicated ones. Somebody's going to go to the ER first. And then where are they going to go? They're going to go back there. So we're going to have an ambulance from Canton drive to Norwood, pick me up, take me to a hospital in Brockton to say, okay, we're sending you to a facility back in Norwood. There needs to be some sort of an anchor first, and that will probably be the hospital or some sort of emergency services based there.
Have we thought about possibly, working with Boston Medical Center? I mean, they've got some great services. They have something called Faster Paths, and, they are I know that they have a location within Boston Medical Center, but I worked at the Roundhouse, which was across the street, and, it serviced people on methadone mile. It was a point for them to go and then have social workers and all of that help to place them without having to be in an actual hospital. I mean, have we had any of those kinds of conversations or something so that we could offer some sort of service?
I know I haven't had that, but what I was going to say, and then I'll give it back to Tony, is one thing we're doing at the local level to kind of offset this is we have community response social workers now. So our public safety departments got rid of an administrator and rejiggered things, and we were able to bring in a full-time community response social worker. She actually works under public safety. She has her own Kevlar vest and everything, but she'll go on calls and will handle a lot of the social aspects of addiction. It's not perfect, but we're finding, so many mental health problems accompany the substance abuse, and now with the opioid funds that we got, Foxboro opted to take those funds, and we're using it to bring on another part-time community response social worker. So we really are trying to fix it at our local level. I do believe there needs to be more collective priority for mental health and substance abuse, and obviously losing NORCAP is a huge loss. I don't know that the towns can address it, but we are trying to do it. And again, we have one community social worker. She works all the time, so that's why we're trying to get a part-timer. But it is unsustainable, and the demands on her are so great. She'll go in Tyvek suits and clean out hoarding houses. I mean, the level of service that we're now providing at our local level is beyond. And but it's so successful, we have to continue to do it. And but we are looking for other solutions to help support us.
Again, I go back to, I think you need some sort of a medical anchor. That's the problem. For anyone to want to expand out here, It's significant money. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the way we structure healthcare in this country, there's not a lot of money in public addiction recovery or in the mental health services, but we've got this gaping hole. To Paige's point, and everyone else is facing it here, it's hard for cities and towns to step into an area that we're not really budgeted to step for. I talked earlier about Prop 2.5. We could use probably 4 social workers. We have a half a social worker at the senior center, and that's it. We could use a lot of other services that it's hard for us to go into, so we get some grant funding here. I mean, we're bringing on a part-time recovery coach that we're sharing with 7 or 8 other towns to just try to have some sort of resource that public safety can refer folks to. And we're doing a little bit of the co-response model with the police too. Again, we do these things around the margin because there's no large entity, there's no state department that's doing it, or a large nonprofit or a hospital network where they can say, all right, you know, we're running a $700 million hospital. Guess what? We can open a little $2 million place for folks to go. So it's a challenge. We're barely keeping our heads above water in that area.
Paige, you had a question?
Oh, sorry, yes. So I guess, Foxboro experienced this year a 14.35% increase in our insurance. So I guess I'm wondering, and I've heard what folks are doing up here, I guess I'm wondering what the private sector is seeing for their insurance rates. I mean, are you all in the same boat? Is this something, you know, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Probably nothing this year, but this is not sustainable. Rates. My brother's restaurant, I think, went up 30%. So you know, I'm just curious if this is town-specific or municipal-wise, or if we're seeing it across the board for most businesses.
Across the board, from my dealing certainly here at the Bank of Canton and with our clients, we are repositioning some of the plans that we offer. Still good benefits, but increasing the deductibles, and that actually net saves the employee money, certainly saves the sponsor money on it, but you have to get creative because it is escalating above and beyond the inflation rate.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing as Steve about changing the plans like that. Also, the Chamber is part of a statewide coalition called the Coalition on Healthcare, that organized by Eileen McEnany, who used to run the Mass Taxpayers Foundation, and its employer groups working to educate the public on better ways to utilize their health care, and there'll be more coming out on that. But also, we work, one of the other partners in that group is the Retail Association of Massachusetts, that they do an annual survey of their members on health insurance, and they're seeing the same thing, rates increases between 10 and 15% across the board. Yeah. Unless there are any other questions, we will close by, first of all, thanking our panelists. Great job. And again, thanking our sponsors, Bank of Canton, Mass General Brigham Healthcare Center, and our host, the Greg Ray and Gray, Andrea, for having us. Great facility. Thank you for that. And I did want to mention a couple of upcoming events. You mentioned Trillium. If you haven't been to Trillium, you have 2 opportunities coming up to get there. We are having our networking lunch in April, will be at Trillium, and we have a business after hours in May that will be at Trillium. So please come join us for that. And then also, you see the flyers in front of you for our Taste of the Region event, one of our bigger events of the year. We're very excited about that. It will be back here in Canton at Blue Hill Country Club on April 9th. And it's a great night to get out and get some great treats, tastes, drinks, whatever. It's all there. There'll be music, raffles, a lot of fun. So hope you can join us for that. And thank you all for being here today. Have a great day.